So, the other day, I cooked a recipe from the Walks of Life cookbook that gave me super crispy wings that were delicious and incredibly easy to make. The secret to these wings came from a mixture of starch and flour that I'd never used before making chicken wings. But this technique is a game changer. I start by washing my wings with salt. This is something they do here in Southeast Asia that I started doing years ago, and now it's just second nature to always rinse my protein with salt. I'll pat these wings nice and dry with a paper towel to absorb all of that extra moisture from washing them. This will prevent the bowl from having too much extra liquid that the recipe doesn't call for. The point for me here is to follow the recipe as closely as possible because with this channel, I'm looking to learn new things from recipes while igniting that old passion I used to have when I was a professional cook. Hopefully, we'll all have fun and learn new things together. The chicken wings are as dry as I can get them and placed back into my big bowl here. I'm going to start mincing enough garlic to get me about 3 tablespoons. I usually just crush these cloves with a knife to speed up the process, but I'm playing with the camera angles and such in my first video here, so I just wanted to take my time and I thought I would use my utility knife to prevent smashing all that good garlic juice all over my cutting board. I see that my knife skills aren't what they used to be, so I'm going to have to go back through with my chef's knife to make these cuts more consistent. And this is fine. I'm still keeping most of that potent garlic juice in the garlic. I add the garlic to the wings. Next, I'll grab 1 large chicken egg, beat it quickly with a fork, and then add it to the garlic and chicken wings. We will add 1 tablespoon of Zhaojiang wine with a terrible shot of just my hand grate, 2 teaspoons of salt, 1 teaspoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 2 teaspoons of soy sauce, 1 teaspoon of sesame oil, half a teaspoon of onion powder, half a teaspoon of white pepper. Once all of these ingredients are added to the bowl, I'm going to give this a nice mix to combine all of these ingredients before adding the starch and flour. To our wing mixture, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, and 1 tablespoon of potato starch. I'm going to mix the flour and starch with the wings until all of that flour and starch has been mixed throughout and dissipates, creating a batter around our wings. The use of more starch than flour to create a batter to deep fry, again, is new for me. I'm really impressed with how this turns out, and it's a technique I'll be using in the future for sure. I actually dug into this a bit, and without getting too scientific, the lack of gluten and proteins that don't exist in the starch are going to provide more of that crispy texture we want without it becoming soggy and mushy. The recipe says we can sit this out for 2 hours at room temperature before cooking or let it set overnight. The longer we let these starch granules sit in our batter, the molecules begin to pull apart, and once they hit that hot oil, they gelatinize, and since they've pulled apart from each other, that's giving us this great texture. I have the time, so I placed this in my very empty refrigerator overnight, and the next day, I pulled it out for an hour to come to room temperature before frying. I fill up my medium-sized pot 2/3 of the way with a neutral oil and bring that temperature up to 325 or as near as possible. I start adding my chicken to the hot oil, and I'm careful here to make sure that I don't add too much and cause an oil volcano in the kitchen. I can only fit 4 wings at a time in the pot, so I'll have to do 3 batches for the first fry. So these first wings, I made a mistake and cooked them for 10 minutes when the recipe only called to cook them for 5 minutes. Good news is they didn't burn and they still look great, just a little dry. But that's all right. I'll have plenty of wings, and I'll just shorten the second fry on these poor little 10-minute wingies. Once they've cooked for 5 minutes, I'll place them on the rack as I continue to fry the rest of the wings. And the Walks of Life cookbook suggests that these should rest for 10 minutes before the second fry. My little electric stove here in the apartment is beginning to overheat and give me an error message, so I'll have to move the pot of oil to the induction side of the stovetop for our second fry. Once that oil has come back up to 325, I'll add these wings into the oil for 3 minutes, and because there's less moisture in the wings now, I can add 5 to 6 wings to speed up my batch cooking. So why the second fry? This is something else I learned from this recipe. When we let these wings sit for 10 minutes, that moisture that is loose and trapped inside the wing during the initial first fry begins to come out to moisten our outside crispy coating. That's good because our cooked chicken is cooked and moist. The second fry is going to evaporate that moisture from our coating to leave us with juicy wings but a crisp texture. When I pull these wings out from the second fry, these are going to go directly onto a paper towel or frying paper. We want to soak off as much of that extra oil as we can from the wings because they're ready to eat now. I left them on the rack here to try and replicate the original image from the Walks of Life cookbook. Thumbs up for the recipe and the Walks of Life cookbook. I'm going to be cooking more of this, and you can find the link for it below and link to the Leung sisters blog and YouTube channel. Sorry if I mispronounced that.